Hare Krishna. Can you hear me? Five, three, zero. Okay, let's resume. Shri Parikshit Uvacha Iti Pragayan Rasanam Munirnijam Ashikshayam Madhava Kirti Lampatam Aho Pravrittasi Mahatva Varnane Prabhorapi Tiswara Dair Vidashyatam. Shri Parikshit said, while singing enthusiastically in this way, the sage instructed his own tongue, which was greedy to chant the glories of Lord Madhava. Oh, you're too busy talking about the greatness of our master. To stop that tongue, he then seized it with his teeth. In jest, Narada chastised his tongue for misbehaving. His tongue was sincerely relishing the pleasure of glorifying the moon born from the ocean of the Madhu dynasty. Madhava. Madhuvamsha Samudra Chandra. Madhavasya. Madhuvamsha Samudra Chandrasya Bhagavataha. But there was little hope to accomplish much by this effort. Brahma with his 4 tongues and Ananta with his thousands had failed to fully describe the glories of Sri Madhava. How then could Narada's one insignificant tongue be so impudent as to try? So from Sri Sanatana Goswami himself. Rasane te mahadbhagyam etadeva yadihitam kinchid ucharayai vaisham tatpriyanam swashaktitaha. Dear tongue, he then acknowledged, this effort of yours attests to your great fortune. As far as you are able, just go on speaking something about these beloved devotees of Krishna. Kimma Shikshayat, what was his teaching to his tongue? That is stated here, the Daharasnayati. To avoid discouraging his tongue, Narada gave it some practical advice. If you cannot adequately praise Krishna, then at least try to praise his devotees. If you cannot praise the devotees' transcendental glories, then simply describe their activities. If you cannot describe everything about those activities, then just describe something. Even if you cannot speak with full realization, speak anyway. The attempt to say something will be all auspicious. Narada proposes to his tongue, you would do better to glorify the Lord's devotees than to glorify the Lord. Although the greatness of the devotees is also ultimately indescribable, the Lord's greatness has no beginning or end. Defeats all attempts at analysis and classification. It cannot be fully understood even by the Lord himself. To Narada, however, the Lord's devotees appear similar to human beings. He has seen them, so his tongue should be able to describe their deeds. If his tongue offends the devotees by making false statements about them, or by distorting accounts of their activities, the devotees will easily overlook those mistakes because devotees are always compassionate to unfortunate persons. Therefore, Narada recommends glorifying the Vaishnavas as the best engagement for his tongue. Just 1 minute. Excuse me, what is this? Shri Narada Vacha Mahanubhava Bhavatam tu tasmin Pratiswakam Yah Priyata Vishesha Bhavatsu Tasyapi Kripa Vishesho Drishtena Niyeta Sakena Jihvam. Shri Narada continued, O great saintly Pandavas, is anyone bold enough to let his tongue describe the unique love for Krishna that each of you has, or the special mercy he bestows upon you? एवं सामान्येन सर्वेषामेव माहात्म्यम् उक्त्वा इदानीं प्रत्येकं भगवत्कृपा विशेषेण माहात्म्य विशेषं वक्तुम् आदौ तथा वर्णने स्वकीय अयोग्यताम् आशंक्य आह महेति. Till now, he has in general described the glories of everyone. Now, he wants to individually describe the special mercy of Bhagavan on each one. So in that way, he wants to point out the individual glory of each of them. In order to do that, first of all, he points out, he anticipates that he's frightened that he himself is disqualified from describing their glories. With this in mind, he speaks this verse. Feeling himself unfit, Narada indicates that only a shameless person would dare attempt to elaborate on the greatness of each of the Pandavas. But Narada cannot stop because his tongue is reluctant to speak about anything else and refuses to remain silent. माता प्रथेयं यदुनंदनस्य स्नेहार्द्रम आश्वासनवाक्यमेकम् अक्रूरवक्त्रा प्रथमं निशम्य प्रेम प्रवाहे निमज्ज सद्यः. Your mother Pritha once heard from the mouth of Akrura a single statement by Krishna, sweet with affection and meant to console her. As soon as she heard it, she plunged into a swiftly flowing current of prema. तथापि तत्कीर्तनैक रसिकत्वात् तत्परित्याग अशक्तेः तथैव माहात्म्य वर्णयति मातेति सप्तभिः. And still, because he greatly relishes talking about their glories, and because he is incapable of not doing it, he describes the individual glory of each also. 7 verses, beginning with the current verse. Mata means your mother. Yeah, Mata Pratha. Mother Pritha or Mother Kunti. Pritha is Kunti. Bhavatam Mata, it means your mother. Or Yadva, Bhavan Matritvena Madrishamapi Mata Eva. Or she's Mother Pritha. I am also like you. And she is the mother for people like me too. That statement of consolation is found in the Dashamaskandha. On one occasion in Mathura, as recounted in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna asked Akrura to visit the Pandavas to see how they were withstanding Duryodhana's harassments. Krishna told Akrura, Sab Bhavan Suhridam Vaina Shreyan Shreyas Chikir Shaya Jigyasartham Pandavanam Gachasva Gachasahvayam. You're indeed the best of our friends. So please go to Hastinapur and ask the well-wisher of the Pandavas, find out how they are doing. So that word of consolation is in accordance with this statement. During this visit, the Pandavas' mother Pritha met with Akrura. Because Akrura was a pure Vaishnava, the very first word she heard him speak kindled in her heart the ecstasies of love for Krishna. Vichitravakyer Bahudaruroda Sputendranam Yat Shravanena Vakshah Bhavat Swapi Sneha Bharam Param Sa Raraksha Krishna Priyatam Apekshya. She often lamented with poignant words that could shatter the heart of anyone who heard them. And she bore the burden of love for all of you, staying tied to you only because you are very dear to Lord Krishna. Prema Rasapura Nimagnata Lakshnamaha Vichitreti. He points out that Pritha was immersed completely in the rasa of Prema Bhakti. Mother Pritha fully trusted Krishna's protection because she was a surrendered devotee. Her complaints and expressions of anxiety did not arise from a materially contaminated consciousness, but rather were her own special symptoms of ecstasy. She did not hesitate to open her heart directly to Krishna, as she did during the reunion at Kurukshetra. Krishna Krishna Mahayogin Vishwatman Vishwabhavana Prapannam Pahi Govinda Shishubhischavasita Theme Nanyat Tava Padambojat Pashyami Sharanam Nidam Bhipyatam Mrityu Samsarat Ishwarasyapa Vargikat. Krishna Krishna, O great yogi, O supreme soul and protector of the universe, O Govinda, please protect me, who have surrendered to you. I and my sons are being overwhelmed by trouble. For persons fearful of death and rebirth, I see no shelter other than your liberating lotus feet, for you are the supreme Lord. Naturally, for a pure devotee of Krishna, Pritha wanted to give all her love to him, forgetting material attachments to family and everything else. But because her sons were also exclusive devotees of Krishna, she maintained her affection for them. Chirena Dwarakam Gantum Udyato Yaduji Vanaha Kakustutibhir Avritya Swagrihe Rakshyatenaya. Krishna, the life of the Yadus, tried for a long time to leave for Dwaraka, but by enveloping him with plaintive prayers, she kept him in her home. Sri Krishna had stayed with the Pandavas throughout the war between Yudhishthir and Duryodhana. But he was also Yadu Jivana, the life of the Yadus. So without his presence, the residents of Dwaraka seemed almost dead. Krishna returned and tried to leave Hastinapur to return to the Yadus. Yadavan Jivayutam Ityartha, to give life to the Yadus. But Mother Pratha dissuaded him with her prayers and induced him to stay a few months longer. Those prayers of Pratha are included in the first canto, 8th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yudhishthirayapi mahaprathishta lokadvayotkrishtatara pradatta tatha jarasandha vadhadina cha bhimaya tenatmana eva kirti. Krishna bestowed upon Yudhishthira the highest prestige, greater than that of anyone else in the upper and lower worlds. And by favors like allowing Bhima to kill Jarasandha, Krishna granted Bhima unequal fame. To enhance the reputation of King Yudhishthira, Krishna encouraged him to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice. Krishna helped the Pandavas dispose of Jarasandha, who was a major obstacle to this sacrifice, by giving Bhima the honor of defeating Jarasandha in one-to-one combat. During Jarasandha's repeated attacks on Mathura, Krishna himself had gotten many opportunities to kill him, but Krishna patiently waited for the suitable opportunity so that the credit would go to Bhima. Bhagavan ayam arjunascha tat priyasakhyena gatah prasiddhatam na puranashyataihi parairaho mahimastotum amushya shakyate. Saintly Arjuna became renowned throughout the world for his intimate friendship with Krishna. I can never sing all the glories of Arjuna even if I recite hundreds of Puranas. Here he refers to Arjuna as Bhagavan, the godly person. Narada calls Arjuna Bhagavan out of great respect. This term is usually reserved for God, but the sage could justify using it by citing this scriptural definition. Utpattim pralayam chaiva bhutanam agatim gatim veti vidyam avidyam cha savachyo bhagavaniti. A person who knows about the creation and destruction of the universe, the karmic comings and goings of embodied creatures, and the forces of enlightenment and illusion may be called Bhagavan. Nakula Sahadevascha Yadrik Priti Parau Yamau Agrapuja Vicaravdo Sarvaistad Vrittamikshitam. And as for Nakula and Sahadeva, everyone has seen many times how fixed they are in love for Krishna, as shown, for example, by how those twins behaved in the deliberations on whom to worship first in the Rajasuya. Just 1 minute. The twins Nakula and Sahadeva worked together so closely that whatever either of them did could as well have been done by the other. And everything either of them did was impelled by pure love for Krishna. Sri Draupadi cha Harina Swayameva Raja Suryadishu Savavareshwabhishikta Kesha Sambodhyate Priyasakhityavita Triputra Dushyasanadi Bhayato Hritasarva Shoka. Hari personally sanctified Sri Draupadi's hair during the Rajasuya sacrifice. In other special festivals, he would call Draupadi dear friend He relieved her of fear of Atri's son Durvasa and fear of others, including Dushasana. He removed all her sorrow. During the Rajasuya and other sacrifices, Krishna with his own hand sprinkled Queen Draupadi's hair with water from the ritual vessel sanctified by mantras. He spoke to her with the affection reserved for intimate family members. He protected her in frightening situations involving Durvasa Muni, the temperamental son of Atri, and saved her from the shame of being disrobed by Dushasana in the royal assembly. Finally, Krishna relieved all her pain by destroying Dushasana and his friends at Kurukshetra. Dushasanacha sabha madhye vastra akarshanaadina yad bhayam tasma avita rakshita chaya. Krishna, he protected Draupadi Devi from the danger when when her cloth was being, when she was being disrobed in the middle of an assembly. So, in that way, Lord Krishna, he protected Draupadi in that incident with Durvasa. Atriputro Durvasaha. Here, Durvasa is referred to as son of Atri. Tasmad yad bhayam dharmarajena nimantritasya sa shishyanasya tasya bhojanartham surya varapraptan nija bhojana anantara bhojanantara tyaktanna patre anna asadbhava. There was a danger that she had faced, because when Dharmaraj Yudhishthir had invited Durvasa with his disciples for eating, there was no rice in the vessel that she had obtained by the blessings of Surya, the sun god. The condition was, after she eats, it would stop producing. Until then, it would go on giving food. So that's what happened. After she finished eating, then this situation came about. Swayamagatya sthali lagna shakamna prashana matrena shishyagana saita durvasas tripti jananat. But then when Krishna personally came, and he just put in his mouth a little bit of rice that was stuck with some shark. He just took that. And then Durvasa, as well as his disciples, they became satisfied. Shud abhavena adhikapaka dosha bhitya sadhyaha apasarana. And then all of them became frightened that they had no hunger now. And they were frightened that there would be extra food cooked, and they would she would not be, they would not be able to eat it. So they were frightened, and therefore they ran away. Sabha madhyacha vastra anantya apadanat. In the case of the danger from Dushasana, then Lord Krishna provided unlimited cloth to protect the honor of Draupadi Devi. Aswadanam Shri Vidraudanasya Shri Bhishma Niryana Mahotsavascha Tattat Kritatvad Drishapakshapatasyaape Shayaiveti Vicharayadhvam. Krishna relished Shri Vidura's porridge and organized the celebration of Shri Bhishma's passing away. Please therefore judge your own standing from how in many controversies both Vidura and Bhishma took your side. Shri Krishna appeared partial to both Vidura and Bhishma, even though Vidura was the son of a low-born Shudrani, Krishna happily shared Vidura's humble food, praising it as very tasty. And Krishna graced Bhishma with his presence as Bhishma was passing away on the battlefield. Niryana means the soul's exit from the body, but as applied to a perfect transcendentalist like Bhishma, it also means merging into the existence of God. For devotees of the Lord, merging into his existence can only mean attaining a spiritual body and entering the eternal kingdom of Vaikuntha. Because grandfather Bhishma saw Krishna before his eyes at the moment of death, Bhishma certainly achieved the Vaikuntha liberation deserved only by pure devotees. It appears then that Krishna highly favored Vidura and Bhishma even more than he favored the Pandavas. But here Narada corrects that popular misunderstanding. Why indeed were Vidura and Bhishma so dear to Krishna? Krishna was pleased with them not only because of their own devotional service, which was not that exceptional, but mainly because they served the Pandavas, protecting them from Duryodhana and other enemies. Vidura and Bhishma earned high esteem in the opinion of the Lord by giving shelter and affection to sons of Pritha when they were helpless. So it is because of their service to these exalted devotees of Krishna that they were considered by Krishna to be his nice devotees, Sri Vidura and Sri Bhishma. Points in the Digdarshini were already paraphrased. Aho Batamahascharyam Kavinam Geyatam Gata Bhavadiya Purastrinam Jnana Bhaktyuktayo Harau. Truly, the words spoken by the ordinary women of your city amaze me. Those words, focused on Krishna and imbued with transcendental knowledge and devotion, are praised in songs by accomplished poets. Astu Tavat Bhavatamrita. Okay, enough of this talk about all of you. Bhavat Sambandhena Paurajjananamavi Paramashcharya Mahimetyaha Aho iti. Even those who live in the city, your citizens, the residents of your city, even their glory is supremely astonishing. Generally speaking, the citizens of a state are virtuous when their rulers are virtuous. As Vyasa and other sages depict in their epics, everyone in Hastinapur under the administration of Yudhishthira and his brothers was saintly and learned. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the women standing on the roofs of Hastinapur spoke to one another while Krishna was passing on the road. Their first comments sounded like those of profound scholars. 5 verses. Panchashloka Jnanoktayaha. They're all statements of philosophy. And then 4 shlokas expressed pure bhakti. Here is the first of the verses belonging to the set on transcendental knowledge. Savai kirayam purushah puratana ya eka asid vishesha atmani agre gunebhyo jagadatmanishware nimilitatman nishisupta shaktishu. Here he is, the original personality of Godhead, as we definitely remember him. He alone existed before the manifested creation of the modes of nature, and in him only, because he is the Supreme Lord, all living beings merge, as if sleeping at night, their energy suspended. Then the woman began speaking like Vaishnava steeped in devotional ecstasy. Aho alam shlagyatamam yadohkulam, aho alam punyatamam madhor vanam, yadesha pumsam rishabah priyah shriyah, swajanmana chankramanena chanchati. Oh, how supremely glorious is the dynasty of King Yadu, and how virtuous the land of Mathura, where the supreme leader of all living beings, the beloved husband of the goddess of fortune, has taken his birth and wandered in his childhood. Since the Pandavas were the leaders of a community in which ordinary people spoke like this, the Pandavas must have been exceptionally saintly. So these are all very deep insights from Narada Muni, reported by Sanatana Goswami. Sahaika pautrena kayadhu nandano nukampito nena kapindra ekalaha sasarvabandhu svajana bhavadrisha mahahare prema kripa bharaspadam. When Prahlad, the son of Kayadhu, obtained the Supreme Lord's grace, he did so along with the grandson. The best of monkeys was favored alone. But you rare souls have received the complete love and mercy of the great Lord Hari with all your family members and subordinates. Evam upasamharishyan purvodishtam Shri Prahlada Hanumadhyam sakashad bhuri bhagatvam sakshadevaha saheti. Now, desiring to come to a conclusion, he points out what he had been saying earlier, that he had received, that these Pandavas had received far greater mercy than Sri Prahlada and Hanuman. Here Narada confirms the assertions by Prahlad and Hanuman that the Pandavas are greater devotees. Other than Prahlad, the only pure devotee among Hiranyakashipu's descendants was Prahlad's grandson Bali. Hanuman alone in his family received Lord Ramachandra's mercy, since Hanuman was a lifelong brahmachari and so had no offspring. The Pandavas, in contrast, shared Krishna's mercy with their entire family and entourage. According to one interpretation, Bandhu in this verse means the Pandavas' sons, wives, and other relatives, while Svachana means their ministers and the residents of their capital. Or alternatively, Bandhu means the relations of the Pandavas by marriage, like King Drupada and King Virat. Swah means their own blood, that means their blood relatives, including Duryodhana and his brothers. And Janaha means their servants and citizens. Either way, everyone associated with the Pandavas obtained the mercy of Sri Krishna, the all-attractive source of all expansions of Godhead. Uddishyayan Kaurava Samsadam Gataha Krishna Samaksham Nijagada Madrisham Ye Pandavanam Sukradotha Vairinas Te Tadrisha Me Pi Mamasabhohite. Once in the court of the Pandavas with me and other sages present, Krishna said of you, a friend of the Pandavas is my friend. And their enemy, my enemy. The Pandavas are my very life heirs. Whatever Krishna says must be absolutely true, especially when he says in the presence of pious sages like Narada. So by making this declaration in such a respectable public forum, Krishna ensured that his feelings for the Pandavas would become well known throughout the world. Just as the 5 pranas maintain the spirit soul in a living body, the 5 Pandavas assisted Krishna in his pastimes. And as the life air is very dear to the soul, the Pandavas were very dear to Krishna. Krishna therefore says in the Mahabharata, Yas tan dveshti samam dveshti, yas tan anu samam anu, aikatmyam agatam vidhi pandavair dharmacharibhi. He who hates the Pandavas hates me, and he who follows them follows me. Know that I am one in spirit with the righteous Pandavas. And Krishna elsewhere says, Dvishadannam na bhoktavyam, dvishantam naiva bhojayet, Pandavan vishasya rajan, mama pranahi Pandava. One should not eat the food of one who is hateful, nor should one feed a hateful person. You, O king, hate the Pandavas, and the Pandavas are my very life heirs. Upasamharati Dashtyamiti. Then he concludes in the next verse. Dharshtyam mamaho bhavatam gunani kila kyatum cha vaktum prabhavet sa ekala nirnitametattum maya maha prabhu sotravatirno bhavatam kritte param. Just see my arrogance. Only Krishna can adequately know and describe your good qualities. But at least I am convinced that the Supreme Lord has descended to this world only for the sake of you. It is evident from Krishna's dealings with the Pandavas that Krishna understood their sublime character. No one but Krishna was fully qualified to reciprocate with them. Narada, ashamed to have impudently tried to glorify the brothers, apologizes by submitting one fact of which is certain. Sri Krishna descended to this world only to please the Pandavas and spread their fame. Yudhishthira refutes Narada's praise. Shri Parikshit Vacha. Athakshanam lajjayevam maunam kritvath nishvasan dharmarajo bravinmatri bhratri patni bhiranvitaha. Shri Parikshit said, for a moment, Dharmaraj Yudhishthira remained quiet, and then he sighed, as if embarrassed. At last he spoke, followed in turn by his brother's wife and mother. Hearing his own praise embarrassed Yudhishthira, or so it seemed. Closer to the truth, however, is that he took this exaggerated praise to be false and thought that Narada was teasing him. In either case, Yudhishthira felt sufficiently moved to sigh audibly, even in front of his mother and younger brothers. Avaduka Shirodharya Naivasmasu Kripahare Vicharya Bhikshamasmabhir Jatu Kapyavadharyate. Yudhishthira said, O crest jewel of brilliant speakers, Lord Hari has no mercy for us. We cannot remember any mercy he has shown us, even after we consider this for a long time. By calling Narada an eloquent speaker, Yudhishthira subtly accused him of distorting the truth. In Yudhishthira's opinion, proof that Krishna blessed him and his brothers with special favor cannot be found. Prakritanam jananam hi madrigapan ganekshaya Krishna bhakto pravritischa vishwasascha hasediva. If ordinary materialists see the many calamities that have come upon us, their faith and their inclination to serve Krishna are likely to wither. So now he begins to give his reasons. Tadeva sahetukam darshayati. Prakritanam iti dashabhihi, in 10 verses beginning with the current verse 47. In text 47 through 56, King Yudhishthira refutes the idea that the Pandavas possess Krishna's mercy. Simple people believe Krishna's devotees never suffer misfortune. Yudhishthira says that when such people see the Pandavas' extreme adversities, this faith will be spoiled. But since he knows that the opposite is true, that by hearing about Krishna's loving dealings with the Pandavas, people gain faith, Yudhishthira qualifies his statement with the word iva. There's a statement. Na Vasudeva Bhaktanam Ashubham Vidyate Kvachit. No inauspiciousness, no misfortune is experienced at any point in time by devotees of Lord Vasudeva. This is a scriptural statement. Etadeva ati kashtam nas tadeka prana jivinam vinannam praninam yadvan meenanam cha vina jalam. This would surely cause us great distress, for we have dedicated our life and breath only to him. We would suffer like embodied beings without food, or like fish deprived of water. एतत् कृष्ण भक्ति विश्वास प्रवृत्ति रसनमेव न तु आपद्गण भोगः. The Pandavas do not resent having been subjected to so many troubles, but they feel responsible for diminishing the faith of other devotees, and this makes them sad. Only the force of Krishna's affection keeps the Pandavas alive. Anena kshanamapi tat atikashta sahana asamarthyamuktam. So that difficulty was something, the difficulty of being involved in situations which diminish the faith of devotees of other devotees of Krishna. That was something that they could not tolerate because it was too difficult for them. Not these events of crisis themselves. Atorsitam maya yajya sampadanamishad idam nishtham darshaya bhaktanam avaktanam api prabho. Therefore, on the pretext of arranging a sacrifice, I begged him, dear master, please show how the fortunes of the devotees and the non-devotees differ. Yudhishthira did not undertake the demanding Rajasya yajna for the power and fame it would earn him. He and his brothers were untouched by such material motives. He wanted only to help the world better understand the glories of Krishna and his devotees. Tvad-bhakta aihika mushmika shesha sampad bhajo bhavanti anye cha tad viparita ityavam lakshanam. So, Yudhishthira, he had begged Lord Krishna that you please point out the distinction between the consequences of being a devotee of Krishna and the consequences of being a non-devotee of Krishna. He wanted that Lord Krishna demonstrate that those who are Krishna's devotees, they attain unlimited prosperity pertaining to both this life and in the next life, and that everyone else will get the opposite of that. That yathoktam anenaiva dashamaskandhe, that is stated by him in the 10th canto. Tad deva deva bhavatas charnaravinda sevanubhava miha pashyata loka esha ye tvam bhajanti na bhajantyuta vo bhayesham nishtham pradarshaya vibho kurusrinjayanam. Therefore, O Lord of Lords, let the people of this world see the power of devotion service rendered to your lotus feet. Please show them, O Almighty One, the position of those Kurus and Srinjayas who worship you, and the position of those who do not. Lokayanto yato loka sarve tad bhakta sampadaha ahika mushmiki shuddha sarva vilakshana bhutva paramavishwasta bhajantas tvat padambujam nirdukha nirbhaya nityam sukhitvam yanti sarvataha. By this sacrifice, all people will see the wonderful assets that belong to your devotees in this life and the next. Opulences all pure and utterly distinct from material assets. Then, gaining absolute trust in you, people will worship your lotus feet, become ever free of misery and fear, and achieve happiness in all respects. People tend to be strongly influenced by the example of their leaders. The Pandavas fulfilled their sovereign responsibilities perfectly by the devotion and precise care with which they carried out the Rajasya sacrifice, by the perfect justice of their administration in this life, and by the exalted position among the demigods they were sure to attain in the next. The Pandavas inspired the innocent people to follow the path of devotion service to Krishna. Everyone could see that the extraordinary wealth and power of the Pandavas was untainted by material faults, because that wealth and power was intended only for the service of Krishna. Sampratya bhaktan asmakam vipaksham stan vinashya cha rajyam pradattamyattena shoko purvato dhikaha. Now our non-devotee enemies have been destroyed. Our kingdom returned to us, and our grief made greater than ever before. After the Rajasuya sacrifice and the Kurukshetra war, Jarasandha, Shishupal, Duryodhana and their allies were all dead, but in fact their existence had been annihilated in an even fuller sense because they were never to take birth again. And although the Pandavas, after long years of suppression, were free to rule, in Yudhishthira's opinion, they had been happier when struggling against one threat of destruction after another. द्रोण भीष्म आदि गुरवो भीमन्यु प्रमुखा सुता परे भी बहवः संतो स्मद्धेतो निधनम गता. It is our fault that many saintly persons met their demise, including venerable teachers like Drona and Bhishma and sons like Abhimanyu. Now, the reason for having made the previous statement is set out in 3 verses, text 54 onwards. This is why gaining the kingdom brought no happiness to the Pandavas. Most of their noble relatives, many of them saintly devotees of Krishna, had been killed in the conflict for sovereignty. Yudhishthira blamed himself for these deaths, since the war had been fought to install him on the throne. Swajivanathika prarthya Shri Vishnu Ganasangate Vichedena Kshanam Chatra Na Sukhamsham Labhamahe. The company of those devotees of Shri Vishnu is more desirable to us than life itself. Deprived of that association, we can no longer find any happiness. Shri Krishna Padanambhoja Sandarshana Sukham Chatat Kadachit Karya Yogena Kenachit Jayate Chirat. We enjoy the pleasure of seeing Shri Krishna's lotus face only once in a while, when after long times absent, he visits us on some business. Krishna did return to Hastinapur a few times after the Kurukshetra war, as when Yudhishthira invited him to attend the Ashwamedha sacrifices. But these few visits were far too short to allay the pain of separation the Pandavas suffered most of the time. Yadavan eva sadbandhun dwarakayam aso vasan sada paramasadbhagyavato ramayati priyan. The Yadavas alone are his true friends, living always with them in Dwaraka. He is always busy satisfying those dear and supremely fortunate friends. Narada might suggest to the Pandavas that Krishna will soon finish his business and return to them because to Krishna they are dearer than anyone else. No, Yudhishthira replies, the Yadavas are even more dear. Krishna very much favors the Yadavas simply because they are the most exalted members of the Lord's own dynasty. Moreover, the Yadavas are endowed with the priceless treasure of pure love for Krishna. Therefore, Krishna goes out of his way to keep them always happy. Yudhishthira reasons that since the Yadavas are enjoying Krishna's company and the Pandavas are not, the Yadavas must be more favored. Asmasu yattasya kadapi dautyam sarathyamanyach bhavadbil ikshyate tadbhuri bhara kshapanaya papa Nashena dharmasya charakshanaaya. From time to time, you have observed him carrying messages, driving chariots, and doing other services for us. But he does these things only to absolve himself of his debts to us, destroy our sins, and protect our religious principles. In addition to acting as the Pandavas' messenger, charioteer, and general servant. Krishna also offered them advice as a royal counselor and killed the religious miscreants on their behalf. But in Yudhishthira's opinion, the impartial Supreme Lord never acted out of preference toward the Pandavas. Bhima refutes Narada's praise. Shri Parikshituvacha. Atha Shri Yadavendrasya Bhimo Narmasukritamaha Vihasyotchay Ravachedam Shrinu Shri Krishna Shishya He. Shri Parikshit continued. When Bhima, the bosom friend of the Lord of the Yadavas, laughed loudly and said, "Please listen, my dear disciple of Shri Krishna." The word Narma denotes natural joking between intimate friends. Bhima was so intimate with Krishna that Bhima could pretend to discern in Narada's character the faults the sage had acquired in Krishna's association. For example, Narada must have learned from Krishna how to cleverly juggle the meaning of words, just as Krishna always juggled words himself. So the implication, na chetavatra kopi dosha. So you are not at fault because your guru does all these things. You are also doing these things. You have been mistrained. That's the idea. Anushya durbhoda charitra varidhe mayadihetos chaturavali guru pravartate va vyavahara kaushalam nakutra kim tan na vayam pratimaha. Krishna is the original source of illusion, the guru of all clever deceivers. His acts are fathomless like an ocean. We have little faith in the many crafty things he says and does. Doesn't he have all sorts of motives? Maya means magic, and it also means material nature, the source of illusion in the created world. Krishna is the source of Maya. Where is this? Krishna is the source of Maya in both senses of the word. In Bhima's opinion, Krishna is too unpredictable and deceptive to trust. Sometimes Krishna acts just for his personal enjoyment. Sometimes he manufactures illusions out of mere curiosity. And sometimes he uses his wit to intentionally bewilder his devotees. In any case, his motive is never simple affection, and the games he plays are not real. Since Bhima and his brothers are experienced men of the world, they are not going to put any trust in such behavior. Straight from Sri Sanatana Goswami. Arjuna refused Narada's praise. Shri Parikshituvacha. Sashokam avadan matas tato mama pitamaha Krishna prana sakha Shriman Arjuno nishwasan mupuhu. Shri Parikshit said, then, dear mother, my grandfather, Shriman Arjuna, the intimate friend of Krishna, dejectedly spoke, sighing again and again. Bhima was Krishna's Narmasakha, the Lord's bosom friend, but Arjuna was Krishna's Pranasakha. That is, Krishna and Arjuna were dearer to one another than life. Arjuna was glorious, Shriman, blessed by the goddess of fortune. Sarva Shobha Sampanna, was blessed with all forms of auspiciousness because of his intimate friendship with Krishna. It was painful for Arjuna to think about the friend he now rarely saw. Shri Bhagavan Arjuna Vacha Bhavat Priyatame Shena Bhagavan Namuna Kritaha Kripa Bharopi Dukhaya Kilasmakam babhuvasah. Blessed Arjuna said, O godly Narada, the great mercy your beloved Lord supposedly bestowed upon us has in fact become the cause of our sorrow. Arjuna's relationship with Krishna is more intimate than Bhima's. Whereas Bhima discounted Krishna's kindness as a mere pretense that served other aims of his pastimes, Arjuna had to acknowledge that Krishna's affection for the Pandavas was real. According to Arjuna, Krishna's intentions when he drove Arjuna's chariot and served the Pandavas in various ways were sincere, yet somehow the results were usually contrary. स्वधर्मैक परैः शुष्क ज्ञानवद्भिः कृता रणे भीष्मादिभिः प्रहारा ये वर्मं मर्मं भिदो दृढा ते तस्यां मत्कृते स्वस्य श्रीमूर्तौ चक्रपाणिना वर्यमाणेन च मया सोढ़ा स्वीकृत्य वा रशः. Swayed by dry speculation, concerned only with their own dharma, Bhishma and others on the field of war fiercely attacked Lord Shri Krishna, piercing his armor and flesh. Lord Krishna, the wielder of the Sudarshan Chakra, tolerated for my sake those repeated attacks on his divine body, although I tried to stop him. Tadeva sahetukam prapancha darshayati sweti navabhihi. Then in 9 verses, beginning with the current verse 62, he elaborates with reasons. In text 62 through 70, Arjuna explains how Krishna's good intentions often brought the Pandavas to grief. During the 18 days of battle at Kurukshetra, even though Krishna had promised to take up no weapons himself, warriors like Bhishma more than once attacked him. Because Krishna wanted Arjuna victorious at all costs, Krishna never turned away from these attacks, but repeatedly exposed to the danger of injury his tender body, more precious to Arjuna than his own. Bhishma and the others who tried to harm Krishna justified themselves on the grounds that they were following principles of righteous warfare. Pitradayopi hantavyah kshatriyena ranangane. On the battlefield, the Kshatriya should be ready to kill even his father or other relatives. But since Krishna is the aim of all true religious principles, the attacks on him were unrighteous. Tathapi sarvasadharma phalarupe tasmin prahara parama anuchitaha. So that is the point. That because Krishna is the person who's meant to be attained when one follows all true religious principles. That being the case, attacks on him were supremely inappropriate, were unrighteous. Arjuna says that the warriors who attacked Krishna did so because their understanding was dry and impersonal. Shushkam yad jnanam parabrahma rupe Shri Krishne astrapidadikam kathanchid api na sangachate. They reason that since Krishna is the absolute truth, he cannot feel pain when pierced by weapons, so attacking him is not wrong. This means Arjuna implies that they were not pure devotees and had no real understanding of the sweet honey taste of Shri Krishna's lotus feet. The blows Krishna received in battle seemed to penetrate his skin and draw blood. The attacks were earnest and forceful enough to have been fatal for a human fighter. More likely, however, the so-called blood flowing from Krishna's transcendental body was actually perspiration, an ecstatic symptom of his compassion for his devotees. Krishna's purpose was to show the world how much concern he always feels for his devotees. Arjuna tried to dissuade Krishna from facing these challenges. He told Krishna, "My Lord, since you promised not to join the fight, why are you advancing to kill Bhishma? Why are you accepting the blows of Bhagadatta and others while I'm here to protect you?" Speaking like this, Arjuna grabbed hold of Krishna's feet and tried to stop him from attacking Bhishma. Ultimately, Krishna's sweet will is supreme. He is Chakrapani, the wielder of the Sudarshan disc with his eternal weapon. He could have effortlessly warded off all attacks and killed all opponents whenever he wished, but he bore the blows of various enemies just to increase Arjuna's fame. Okay. Any questions? Let me another note. Next is 1564. Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Danat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Prabhuji, in your lecture, you mentioned that the devotees of the Lord, there is no inauspicious for them, there is no misfortune for them, there is no misery for them. But at the same time, when we see the life of Pandavas, our own Prabhupada, and many other devotees like Haridas Thakur, who was beaten in 22 marketplaces, they seem to be, unnecessarily tortured or suffering, from in the hands of these malicious people. So now, what is going on, Prabhuji? In what sense it is said that the devotees, Lord, do not face inauspiciousness?
Those who are in full transcendental devotional service, they do not experience the external material happiness or unhappiness. That is the case even with successful jnanis or yogis, what to speak of successful bhaktas. But nevertheless, Krishna uses his devotees to teach the world certain lessons. And the world needs to be taught about the importance of being tolerant. These are all very basic instructions. But Krishna prefers to use his own devotees to teach the beginners in Krishna Bhakti. So on one hand, they seem to be experiencing various difficulties and challenges. If you see even Prahlad Maharaj, he was tortured in various ways by Hiranyakashipu. But we also are informed by the same scriptural authorities that describe these incidents that Prahlad Maharaj was completely absorbed in thinking about the Supreme Lord. So he did not personally experience any of these difficulties. The same thing applies to various devotees of the Lord who point out that material existence is intrinsically very difficult. So until we come to the point of full transcendence, we should be tolerant. For those who are as transcendental as they are, then these difficulties are understood correctly. These are actually aupadhika. These pertain to the external world. They do not actually pertain to themselves. But since neophyte bhakti yogis or aspiring bhakti yogis, they don't have experience that is experience of the sweetness of devotional service that is comparable to the experience of these Siddha Vaishnavas. it is our duty as part of our sadhana itself to tolerate. And that needs to be shown. And therefore, Krishna makes an arrangement for his own devotees to show this. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has explained this. Satpatha Prachar. This is to teach the pathway of spiritual progress. It is not enough just to instruct one. No matter how detailed you give those instructions, it's not enough to just give those instructions on the process of spiritual development in Bhakti Yoga. It is also important to communicate how in each stage you will come across various challenges and how you need to progress. So therefore, Krishna arranges for his devotees to point out different aspects. These things will become clear to those who are making spiritual progress itself. We cannot accept one portion of the scriptures and reject another portion of the scriptures. We cannot say that these difficulties have been described in the scriptures as historical fact. So therefore, these difficulties were real. That is a fact. But on the other hand, the very same scriptures also give us information about the transcendental nature of their devotional service. There is a distinction between devotional service executed in the sadhana stage and devotional service executed in the siddha stage. So the same scriptures also give us evidence about these devotees being completely absorbed and fixed on the spiritual platform. We have to understand how both of these facts are true.
Thank you, Prabhuji. It was very enlightening, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Anything else? Okay. All right. Anchagalpatarvyasya Kripasamudhyavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.